how are you doing? So the plan for today is to do some VCDB encoding now that we're back from Vegas and have had a week to recover from it. Um, if this is your first time seeing us do this, then what we're doing is taking unstructured data from things like reports of breaches and such from the news, publicly disclosed breaches, and we're going to turn it into a structured format called Varus that we use for structuring the data for VCDB so that we can get to a structured data set. VCDB, so Varus Community Database, is a open, free data set that we use, but is also available to the community for research and whatever other uses. So we'll get that started here. Let's see. To switch screens over to, I think this one. There we go. And so we're going to use a tool called the Varus web app. It's in the Varus repo on GitHub, which is just vz-risk/Varus. But it's also hosted at the Varus community website, which tells you a little bit more about Varus. And it's an easy way to read in a Varus schema and then code the data in that format. And it kind of arranges the fields in a way that makes sense, is more intuitive than just you get from the JSON. So we're going to be coding for VCDB, and the way we assign VCDB issues is we have our issues list, and Suzanne, who's on our team, puts issues into the issues list over time, and so that's why there's 5,000 issues, and each issue is a breach that's been reported somewhere through a Google alert or through the news or wherever, and then we go back in, and I've got a script that assigns several people a couple a week to do. We assign them randomly for the most part, so that we're getting a random sampling of the breaches that are in here. We do prioritize newer breaches. We also prioritize some priority breaches. So healthcare things get a higher priority because we use them for a PHI specific report every once in a while. And there's also some that are just substantially significant in the news, that we also code. 3.969 million members from an educational equity. And so the priority ones we code, and we also note that in the record so that anyone doing academic research can filter those or otherwise handle them knowing that they were selected in a priority basis. And so I should start at the bottom of my list, but I'm going to go and find the ones that are assigned to me. So, and I have, it looks like 15 open. One priority one, but I think I did this last time on stream and I may have forgotten to close it. So I'm going to check that after the stream. We'll go down and we'll start at the bottom maybe. And this is an old one. This is from 2015. Or it was open on 2015. And so because of that, when I go and code it, I'm going to really say that it belongs in the 2016 DBIR year. Because even though we're just getting around to coding it, it's really not a 2020 breach. And so when we record it against a certain year to do analysis, we want to record it against the year it was brought to our attention, not the year we eventually got around to it. So we've got a link here. Open that in a new tab and take a look at it. Yu Han, who has also gone by the name John Han, has been accused of stealing non-public information from the firm's email system. He then illegally traded this information in advance of client mergers, making more than $450,000. So that would be a really a misuse case. So we'll see if this is here. So let's start. We'll assign ourselves as the analysis, the analyst, and that's it. Let's notes, nothing really. This is a confirmed breach. This is GitHub issue. Let's see, 6723. Put that in here, and we also want to put the reference, which is the link, so that this is helpful for both when we go and deduplicate records, because public breaches can enter our data set in multiple ways. And so for anything that's public, we generally have to do a little bit of work to deduplicate it. Say insider trading based on email. And so the question is, how did he get the information by email? Was it his email that he got the information from, or was it a different email? Gave him access to confidential information so that he could detect and deter illegal activity, but he betrayed that trust. So it's certainly misuse. You know, it may be, I get the feeling he was maybe monitoring email, exploited the information contained in these confidential emails, access to emails as part of his work to develop electronic surveillance software. Who watches the watchers, so to speak. Say email monitoring access. And this would be a breach because, you know, he had access to the email system, but it was for surveillance for a different purpose. He didn't have access to just read people's emails personally. And so he misuses access to the email system. Confidence, relatively high. It's easy to be highly confident in some of the VCDB breaches because it's publicly disclosed. Others, there's only vague information. But we don't have a whole lot of information when this happened, unless I'm missing something in this record. So let's take a look. As he explained, blah, blah, blah. So this is an SEC complaint, which we might be able to find, we might not. At this point, it's probably easier to just note the year. It happened in 2015. Let's see. I don't think we have enough to note these. The problem is there's nothing here that really tells us a whole lot about when it was, how long he did it, because we don't know how long it took him to execute it. We don't know how long it took him to discover it. We don't know how long it took him to stop it. And this is the case with VCDB in general, is that, and really Varus is a schema. You don't have to know everything to do it. You can know bits and pieces, and it still becomes useful because of the way we treat the data. And so part of this is in the tooling for analyzing VCDB or Varus data. You want the sample size to be things where you have a value. So if we're going to go and search and try to determine something like, I think what's most interesting to people is discovery time. We're going to remove all the unknowns from the sample size. And so that we'll be saying in the percentage of breaches where we knew what the discovery time was, which is our sample, this is how many of those were hours or minutes or days and that kind of thing. And so that's important because it allows us to put in a lot of data that's relatively sparse, but still be able to analyze it and analyze individual pieces. And as we transition to more confidence-based analysis, we can, and a Bayesian-based confidence, we can analyze even smaller data sets and still get relevant findings. So victim ID. And so assume this is Goldman Sachs. Goldman has one in Sachs. And let's just Google Goldman Sachs to see how many employees they have. I assume it's a lot. Let's see. The Wikipedia article may tell us. Number of the amounts. Revenue, number of employees, 36,000. And we don't need to know exactly because we're talking in ranges. And so this sounds like 20,000, 25,000 to 50,000. Industry, is there a NICS code here? I would assume banking, but I don't know for sure. And it's pretty easy to just search for NICS codes. Okay. Offices of bank holding companies. Okay, 55111. NICS codes are North American Industry Classification Standards. It's what we use to describe industries for the DBIR. And industry classifications are actually kind of a weird thing, in that most of the standards were written before technology came around. And so the things that we would traditionally think about as technology actually fall into different categories. There's no technology category, so to speak. There's manufacturing, and there's services, and there's shipping, things like that. And technology companies do one of those things. They provide a service, or they provide, or they manufacture a product, things like that. And many times they do multiple of them, which makes it really hard to get the correct NICS code. But we use our best, and ultimately for technology, it doesn't. We're never going to have a technology NICS code. We'll always have this industry standard ones. And so even if you're using SIC codes, which are a alternative, it's the same way. There's no technology option. Locations affected, it sounds like 1. Was it clear where this happened? Well, it happened in the US because SEC, so I'm going to find the United States. There we are. In region, a lot of times, especially for non-VCDB issues, we don't really know the state or the country, but we may know the region of the world. And really, region is a much more interesting characteristic, because we can go and do analysis in specific regions. And so we don't always need the country, but the region is relatively important to capture. And we use the UN's M49 coding, though we do it a little weird. There's like a super region and then a sub-region. So the super region for Americas is 19, 019, and the sub-region is 021 for North America. And so we concatenate those together. And there's a couple of the main ones that pop up down here. This almost always covers the regions. The hardest thing is figuring out what region the country is in, because it's not always completely clear, and the dividing lines are kind of odd. I'm going to leave the state empty because I don't think it said specifically what state this occurred in. So gave him access to comment, blah, blah, blah. So amount of secondary victims. Yeah, see, I don't think there's any secondary victims. So we'll go down to the actions. The victim is, the action was misuse. This was approved software, unapproved privilege misuse. And this would be privilege abuse, because he had access to this email system to help with the surveillance software, but he used it inappropriately to read confidential emails of potential acquisitions. LAN access, and this is why you'll see LAN access pop up so much in the DBR, is because for misuse, it's almost always someone sitting on the network. Really, I guess exfiltrate is probably the appropriate description. He uses access to get data. Now, the actor. This was an internal actor. And he was, I guess, a developer. So he was developing software. And then financial. And it's 9 times out, well, what? 3 times out of 4 financial. Job change. Really nothing. He was just kind of working his job. So we'll skip that. And then there was no partner actor, so we finished our actors. And our assets, there was probably really only one, and that was the mail server. So we'll go down to servers, and we'll find mail. And we'll put one mail server. And we really don't know the operating system. Not that it really matters. We don't know the country. Though I think we could guess, realistically, it's in the United States. So that's our asset, and then our attribute. He breached the confidentiality. There was data disclosed. And the total, we don't know. The companies included 1, 2, 3, at least 4 companies. So we'll say 4 pieces of information. Amount for variety, internal information. And then the data victim was, let's say customers of the victim. So Goldman Sachs customers. State, I don't know, like, so I'm going to say stored. We don't really know if the email, who encrypts emails? Stored unencrypted. We'll say stored encrypted. It wouldn't really be transmitted unless he was capturing it as it was actually in transit, which almost never happens. This is one of the fields. There's several fields in VCDB or Varus or enumerations that are there specifically because they don't happen. And so by having them there, we can, if anyone asks, how often is data captured in transit? We can actually answer that question and say it doesn't happen a lot. And we've got an enumeration for it. And the reality is it just doesn't happen. It's almost always captured at a location because it's much easier. Data abuse. Yes, the information was used for criminal intent. Partner data, partner number. Yeah, I say 4 and 4 because really they used the partner's data. But if we're going to mark that, then it really, under victim, we should mark 4 secondary victims as the 4 companies that were targeted. And so we'll do that. Then credit monitoring really doesn't apply here. So we can close down attribute. And was this targeted? Was it opportunistic? I say it's opportunistic because it sounds like the person wouldn't have done it if they hadn't had access to this email system. It's not like, so if there was means, motive, and opportunity, they were given the means and they were given the opportunity, and their motive was not to breach this specific target. If we knew that they'd gotten assigned to this for Goldman Sachs specifically because they knew they would have access to this information, that would be one thing. But since it sounds like their motive was, hey, they figured out a way to make money and this just happened to be the way because they had the other things, it's really opportunistic. Discovery method, did they really give us any information about this? Information, so it helped the firm detect and deter, but betrayed the trust. Fortunately, SEC probe uncovered. Fortunately, the SEC staff probing analysis uncovered. So it sounds like it was detected externally. He could dissipate, so he didn't even get the money. And really, the money wasn't actually, it would be hard to quantify who lost the money. It wasn't the victim that lost the money. It was people who had to pay slightly higher prices because of his insider trading, or who sold at lower prices than they otherwise would have because he traded early. Let's see some higher boosts. So I'm going to say external. Security audit or scan. External law enforcement. Monitoring service, security researcher. I don't know. Does the SEC's enforcement division, that sounds like law enforcement. There's a law against insider trading, they enforced it, and it fits that bill. And then that's discovery. Then the value chain. This would be if we knew it. So he didn't cash out. He didn't launder the money. He didn't have to distribute anything, so he wasn't distributing malicious emails or anything. Targeting. He wasn't using any service to identify his targets. He didn't have to really do anything. There wasn't a value chain here. If this was more of a criminal organization or maybe a phishing campaign, there may have been other things that had to be done here. Impact, overall rating, insignificant. It was reported they removed the guy. He didn't even transfer the money away, so he didn't get it. Goldman Sachs didn't suffer because of this. That. So subsource, I don't think this was a priority incident. So we'll mark it random because it was a random assignment. We also need to go down here and do event chain. And this was really, he misused his access by an internal person to a email server to confidentize the confidentiality, and he directly then went and monetized it. Yeah, value chain. I mean, technically there's a cash out step here. Let's see. Well, this really wouldn't be fraud. And I think that, so he did cash out the information. Hijacked rewards. Hijacking, click fraud. Not cryptocurrency. I don't think any of these others really apply. So notes, cash out, insider trading. Yeah, because that's what happened, right? He didn't steal money, he stole information. And then he cashed the information out for $455,000 worth of money. So there we go. Plus anti-forensic measures, we don't know. Attack difficulty, low. No. These we don't really use a lot. They're a holdover from previous issues. So we got the event chain. Create and modify get filled in automatically. Security maturity, we don't know. Unknown unknowns, we'll skip that. And we'll skip all the rest of this. Analysis. Put this as validated. And we'll save this. And one thing that's helpful, let's see, is if you have a new file up here. This shows you the JSON that corresponds to the breach at the end of every incident you code. And so the web app is pretty good. It tries to store everything in the local storage so that you always have it. It gives you, if you dump it out and something happens because it's a web app and it's imperfect, it tries to save the information for you, but it doesn't hurt to copy it off onto a text file. So that if something does happen, especially if you've coded, like you're coding 10 or 20 in a row and you get them all in and you try to export and something goes wrong and the web app thinks it's exported them, so it deletes them, but the file doesn't get written to disk or whatever reason. Now you've still got a copy of it because it's never fun to go back and have to do a whole bunch of them. So put that down and we'll go up and do another one. So this is our first one. And now it's filled in for us to do another one. And we'll mark this one as closed. And we will go back and refresh our list and see what we got next. Corporate espionage at Nano C University, Malaya. Quantum Petroleum. That sounds actually kind of interesting. So another misuse one, actually. So we'll open up the link and close this link. DNS update required. That is not a good sign. Site IP address is and no longer available at this requested domain. If this is your site, please update your DNS to use the correct IP address or CNAME. So someone's hosting has not kept up. So we'll mark computers dead, require additional information, which we can do, but I'm going to save to do that off stream. So there's a needs details tag, which you can add to a comment, and we'll go back and look at another one. Tanker Group says it faced cyber attack in July. Okay. We'll see if there's enough detail here. Fill in this. Okay. Company that owns fleets of tankers, including VLCCs, very large somethings. Product tankers and others was hit by a cybersecurity breach that allowed hackers to gain access to the company's computer systems. Okay. Attack report in July, making it the first shipping related cybersecurity breach report since. Like, how helpful is that? Like, this is the first breach since this other big breach. Like, it's like name dropping in a news article. Company that owns fleets of tankers. Unauthorized access sometime back in July, and actions have been taken to rectify the matter. Internal and external communications to customer stakeholders were not impacted, and it was business as usual. We worked around planned system downtimes. It's an IT department. We're in the market intelligence firm. Form a formal audit on their systems. Analysts brought in KPMG's cybersecurity consulting. Formal audit. Company is working with UK telecom giant BT and others to implement new cybersecurity products. Cyber attacks. Again, then we get into boilerplate. Recent months, it has confirmed the breach of its computer systems did not involve ransomware. Consultants discovered the first insurance search engine discussed determining full cost of impacts in 90 days. How much business interruption loss are they going to face? We just do not know yet. Why not paying it? So, I don't know. I'm going to mark this one as needs more information as well. The reason being it's where's it needs information? It really lacks any detail about what happened. It's really only I think reported because it came after the NotPetya attacks, and so they've apparently kind of put it in here because of that. Yeah. It like gets worse. Like, these are actually even better breaches than like when you start seeing the just obvious, person got phished and gave away the money. Like, that's the psi level just goes up quickly. Like, at least when the person was given access to write like the email filtering and monitoring software, and they went and turned around and used it for insider trading. Like, there's something novel about that. At least like someone did something a little unique. It's like when you see the fifth left their cloud storage bucket exposed to the internet, or put MongoDB on the internet. You just like lots of size. In fact, fun fact, it used to be that when we coded these, certain things turned up so often that we had pre-populated schema forms that we filled out because it was always the same thing happening. And so 75% of the time when we were coding VCDB, you'd start with, yeah, exactly. It was always starting with that bulk spot, and you just filled in the details on this one, changed the name of the victim and the date it happened, and you had yourself a breach. And so we've actually talked about trying to get that implemented in the web app. We just don't have the web app coding expertise and time to go do it. I built the original web app, and then we had an internal partner who actually does a good job of coding web apps write it for us. And so now we need to kind of update it and make it a little bit simpler. Another thing is it includes all the fields that we use for the DBIR and that we really use, but a lot of people don't need this level of granularity. They want, like, it was hacking, it was malware, like the very top level stuff. And there is a maturity model that we've written for the DBIR or for Varus to say kind of these are the things that are more important to code. And so if you're basically just starting off, like if you can just record the date and time the breach happened, at least you have kind of and who the victim was, what organization. You've got basic information about these people in my organization are getting hit with breaches more or less often. Like, that is useful information. Then from there, you can go record more about, are we seeing more malware, more social, or more internal or external attacks? And so even at the very high level, it's useful for an organization. And so we'd like to kind of get the web app so that people can choose their level of granularity, so that kind of provide a very simple learning curve for coding incidents. So all things we'd like to do with the web app when we have a little more time and web coding capability. So, okay, the Slacks detail article is more me too about not Petya than anything. So we'll comment on that. And then we're gonna close this one down. Oh man, this is slow today. I don't know if I'm doing something. Maybe it's the streaming is slowing down my connection. That shouldn't take that long here. Well, okay, now the comments there. Okay, so back to my list. We'll refresh it to get kind of down here. We also have some codes which are schema codes. In fact, if this is something, if you want to code Varus, one of the types of issues that we have, and I'll have to clear my assignee, is we have a code for, oh no, it's not in VCDB, it's over in Varus, the Varus repo, but we have a code for coding standards. And so you can go and select down to that issues list, and it lists kind of standards for how to code different things. We're trying to capture the institutional knowledge we kind of have on the DBR and on this team about how we code things, because coding things consistently is incredibly important for being able to enumerate it. If the same thing happens 5 times and you code it 5 different ways, when you go and look at it, it's going to look at 5 different things once instead of one thing 5 times. So, okay, St. Louis Community College investigates possible student data breach. Open up some links here, see what they are. Oh, good. There's nothing here. So it says email attachment containing PII was sent. Yeah, this would be a Psi one, right? Yeah, we accidentally emailed 350 students' information to all the other students. Whoops. Okay, so attachment had, but at least it's got the details of what the information was. Deleted the email. Well, that's very nice of them. Is there any more information over here? A little more. This time they sent out a letter saying 4,000. Okay. Oh, these are 2 separate breaches. Okay. I remember to change my phone number. It said only because of my personal phone. First time it happened, the school sent out a letter saying an employee emailed an attachment containing. This time, okay. It has second time. So this is actually 2 different breaches of the same organization. So we're going to actually record 2 breaches here. So confirmed. My name's here. We'll do the first one first. And this, by the way, is why you can't subset the data down on just GitHub issue, because some GitHub issues will legitimately exist multiple times. So summary, employee sent 1 student's information to many students, or many students' information to many students. Many students. And I'm going to change this. I'm not good at grammar, but I should try. Students. Confidence, pretty high. Timeline. Where did we? Oh, well, this was it. You can probably assume that this email came out pretty close. March 1st, 2018. So the incident happened in 2018. We'll say it happened in February if they're sending it on March 1st. Compromise. Oh, yeah. Compromise is really seconds because they just sent the email. Well, I mean, no, compromise is NA because there was no breaking into anything. Exfiltration. Remove that. Discovery time, we really don't know. And containment. We know it was relatively quickly, as far as they could. They pulled back the email. But again, we don't really know a whole lot about it. And whether you code an NA or a unknown, in most cases, both will be removed from the sample size. But it depends on the question you're asking. If you're asking, what percentage of discovery methods or discoveries took days, then when it's not applicable, there was no discovery method, and so it wouldn't be included in the sample size. But if you're asking what percentage of breaches involved took days to discover, that would be all breaches, and so you would include not applicable. And our tools kind of, in the VeriSAR repo, provide the opportunity for you to specify that. If there is an NA option, it will force you to choose whether to include it or not. And normally you don't want to include it in the sample size, but you have the option. Notification, we know it happened, but we don't know when. So the victim, I did copy the victim's name, right? Nope. So the victim is St. Louis Community College. Okay. It's community college. I'm going to guess that they don't have a massive explanation of how many employees they have and such, but we can check. Academic staff, so say about 3,000 people as of whenever this was updated last. That's a decent number of people on staff. It's 1,000 to 10,000. It's more than a small organization. 3,000 staff at a community college. Well, I guess this must be the entire system, maybe? Like 70,000 students? That's a lot. Okay. Wow. Nix code. We can probably look this one up. This would be education. Far Smarter Bids is the unofficial sponsor for VCDB and VeriSAR and such, because we always go to it to look up Nix codes. So junior colleges, universities, and schools. So put that in here. Locations affected. Say 1. United States. And then open a new tab. And always switch open a new tab. We try to create them so that they open their own tab, but we're not always good about it. And so you don't want to browse away while you're editing one. So it's always good to choose open a new tab on these links. And so region, and then the state ISO codes. I tend to look these up. Let's see. I'm going to put the US in front of it, but I think that actually I need to remove the US. But our post-processing hopefully handles it. If it doesn't, it will by the time we do this again. Secondary victims, really, there aren't any. 0. So now in the action. So this is a straight error. So the action, error, let's see. Gaff. Misdelivery. Sent wrong info to wrong person. Vector. Carelessness. Person just attached it. That's all we have. Actor is internal. We know it was an employee, but do we know anything else? I mean, it has to be an employee by definition. We would hope that it was a administrative employee if they sent that many, but and had access to that information. But we're going to say unknown. Motive. There's no motive when it's unintentional, when it's an error. We don't know anything about the organization. That's actor. Asset. Vault was an email server. Again, it's amazing how often that happens. We don't know the operating system. It's not really relevant anyway. And then the attribute was confidentiality. This was a breach. The data total. This one was 362. Let's see. So one of these terms is decided to talk. Here we are. There it goes. That was distracting. Okay, and this is going to be personal information. Because it was emails, ID numbers, addresses, names. Say social security numbers. Did not contain social security numbers or date of birth. Yeah. Like, at least we didn't disclose that. Good for them. Personal information. It was students. It happens enough that we have it in there. State. It was unencrypted. Yeah, stored. It wasn't really captured in transit, so stored unencrypted. Data abuse. No. They just sent it. Targeted, not applicable because it's an error. Discovery method. And so on discovery method, generally, if there was any indication whatsoever, it would probably go with external discovered by victim. Here it is. Customer. Because, more than likely that's what happened is they mailed this out and someone emailed them back and said, hey, why'd you send me all this data? But they really don't say here, and so I'm going to skip guessing because there isn't really any indication in any direction. There's no value chain because this is an error. Then impact, insignificant. As far as we can tell, they just told everyone that it happened and deleted the email. So, yeah, life went on. Subsource, I think this was randomly assigned. Right, this wasn't a priority or anything, no. Event chain, very easy. An error, actor internal, asset, a mail server, attribute confidentiality. And by the way, don't ask why these are availability is AU, confidentiality is CP, and integrity is IA. It was like that when I got here. And then what's this? We'll put this as validated. Save it. By the way, if you made any errors and didn't fill in a field that is required, you would get a error here telling you what you needed to fill in. Because the forum validates the JSON against the schema as it writes it. So we'll return. We've got 2. And now we'd have to do this exact same one again. Isn't that so exciting? Oh, I actually am going to go back and change this one. No, this one. Students information, because this is not a 2020 breach. This happened in 2018. This should be a 2019 breach. Well, let's see, when was it entered here? March 2018, yeah. So this should really be a 2019 breach. So we'll save that again. And again, it just gives you the data. You can copy it in back where it was. It makes a little change. We'll return. And then I'm going to start with a new record, even though I could click this one and I'd have a lot filled in, because my UUIDs will be the same, and it'd be a nice if we had a button that calculated a new UUID. We could work from that schema. That might be part of how we do kind of templated breaches in the future, but we don't really have it yet. So we'll go over here, and this is March 2019. So this goes into the 2020 DBIR. It's me, and that's it. Confirmed. Same GitHub number, but completely different year. Different reference. Summary. Let's see. Is it the same thing? Raise her name. Raise to more to 3. More. So they released it to other employees, right? Data breach is searching for accountability. It's very frustrating. It's given out twice. And where's the security of that? The student said the college released her name, address, ID number, phone number, race, and more to 3 Bayless School District employees. Didn't give them information. Release this information. Last year, around the same time, they released the same amount of information to a limited number of students. Said she made changes. First time the school sent out a letter saying the employee emailed. This time they sent out a letter saying nearly 4,000 were affected. This feels a little bit like being overly sensitive. I mean, I guess since they count it as a breach, we should too. But it's a little bit different to send it to 3 employees, school district employees, versus sending it to 400 students. Times, make sure they're student minimal. It's not download. Information went to people who, upon notification, deleted this information. It was not download. It was not shared. Student's social number was not released. Feels bomb. Training provided. Okay. Yeah, this one's employee emailed student information to other employees. Inappropriate. I don't know. This goes into like the overreaction standpoint and wouldn't have been reported at all if it hadn't happened last year, but so be it. So when is this again? Say March 2019. See, if their timing was off, if they didn't do it in the exact same month, this wouldn't have been an issue. So we'll say 3, we don't know the day. Compromise, not applicable. Exfiltration, not applicable. Discovery, unknown. Containment, unknown. We know that they did contain it, we just don't know how long it took. The victim is again St. Louis Community College. I do not want to sign up for that. So, and by the way, we only fill victim ID in on VCDB. We don't fill it in on any of the other sources because we only want the victim ID in our data set if it's public. That helps us protect us from disclosing something we shouldn't. So I think we decided that they were 1,000 to 10,000. Community college, locations affected, 1. I could like shortcut to it, couldn't I? No, I'm going to sit here and scroll through to find it. United States, region, state, U.S., Missouri. I guess I should be checking to make sure it's St. Louis, Missouri, and not St. Louis, Illinois. Let's see. Does it say anything? It's got to be St. Louis, Missouri. I mean, it doesn't, but whatever. We'll say it's the news is St. Louis, Missouri. That's close enough. Secondary doesn't apply. Victim, action, error. Same thing as last time. Careless, misdelivery. The actor, internal. We don't know what kind of internal motive. Not applicable. The asset, say email server. One asset. Targeted, not applicable. Discovery method. Again, we don't really know. Mark unknown. Value chain doesn't apply. Impact. Insignificant. They sent out an email and asked people to delete the file. Randomly assigned. Event chain, an error, an internal actor led to, on a server, led to a breach of confidentiality, and we forgot attribute. So we need yes. Data 4,000 records, 4,000 records of personal information of a student. And we should mark data abuse not. Data abuse, no. Got that. And that's that one. So use that and add another file for it. Save that off to the side. I don't know. So is it, that's a good question, Calvin. Would a junior college be considered a like a community college? I don't know. I guess it depends what they offer. If they're offering only like 2-year degrees or if they've got 4-year degrees. Let's search for them again and see what they say. So we can go back and change both those records. What's Wikipedia say? They've got 3 campuses. Let's see. Vote of no confidence. Offer the college grants associate's degrees. Okay, no, I agree with you. I'm going to go back and change those both to junior colleges since they don't grant longer degrees. So that's 611210. Okay. So let's return and we'll go and change this one. Victim, Nix. We'll save it. I'm going to copy this and put it over on the other ones that I was saving. And then turn up. Yeah. Let's go back and see if it's still gone. And then this one, victim, change this to 2. We'll save it. Copy, return. There we go. See. So we'll make that change there. And then close this out. And mark this as 2 breaches. Then I need to close it after it gets done saving that. And we'll go back to my list. How time are we? We'll do one more and then we'll call it a day. I'm like running behind seriously because this is like our assignment doesn't stop when for things like DEF CON stuff. We stop the assignment over the winter while we're writing the DVIR, but otherwise we get a bunch of assignments, so we all get backed up on issues. And so there's always more to do. I was actually doing really good. Like the week before DEF CON, I was like down to just a couple left, but uh, unfortunately, that has not lasted. Our assignment script keeps chugging on. There's always more to code. So okay, let's start this one. Let's see. Oh, we need to start a new incident here. Hit and ransomware attack. This is confirmed. Reference the GitHub ID. And we could start looking at it. Cloud hosting provider InSync says it tried to recover from a ransomware attack that shut down its network and has left customers unable to access their account data for the past 3 days. Unfortunately, InSync, the company, appears to be turning a deaf ear to the increased anxiety cries of its users. InSync experienced a ransomware attack by unknown malicious attacker. The attack impacted data belonging to certain InSync clients, rendering such data inaccessible. As soon as InSync discovered the attack, we did something about it. Yeah, get an E for effort. At the time, we do not have an estimate for when the systems will be available. That's not great. I mean, the maintenance schedule. It's very nice of them to note that they didn't. They're not continuing their maintenance schedule while they're under a ransomware attack. Okay, I wonder if there's more information about this breach anywhere. Like, how long did this was on July 19th. Then, we have the type of ransomware. Caught the attack early. The malware was able to encrypt some files. And so that tells us a little bit about what type it was. It wasn't, a database. It was ransomed. Started on July 16th. Currently working to determine if those are recoverable. You might see encrypted files on your desktop. Wow. Okay. Not much is known about the malware. Okay. I mean, this is kind of useful. It gives us a little bit more information, but I kind of want additional information here. Like, I'd like to see, like, have they figured this out yet? Are they still under a ransomware attack? Oh, I have it over here. 5 ways to avoid a ransomware attack. I'm not sure this is directly related, but I do want to look at it. I wish this page had like an update date on it. Like, when did they write this? Cloud computing. No, he isn't. That's because he uses paper. He actually doesn't use computers at all. Yeah. Yeah. All of his data is printed. Hey. See, this is like when you size, when the people that got hit by the ransomware attack have a full page explaining the importance of not being hit by ransomware attacks. It can happen to anyone. I guess that's the moral of the story. Okay, so let's get back to actually doing this depressing story. Confidence pretty high since he may still not have finished it. They got hit on July 16th of this year. We really don't know a lot about the compromise. They haven't said much other than the malware. Have they? See, I did not know the attackers asked for ransomware. Well, where's the blog? Noted in a blog. So is this the blog? Yeah. So let's see what the blog says. Minimum silver lining. After several days of working nonstop. It's okay. For the nice your local hard drive. Here's what we can expect. Sure. Find no traces to known malware main. So that's helpful. Doesn't tell us how they got in. Just what you expect when you log on. Files may populate your cap. For those days, we do not immediately populate. We caught the attack early. The malware was able to encrypt. We're currently determining how you might see encrypted files on your desktop. For the next 30 days, back up your stuff. Last but not least, here's the help phone number. Malware attacks. They happen to everyone. We couldn't have seen this happen coming. We were hit by a sophisticated malware. I don't know. We need to add a action variety to Varus for like there's malware and then there's sophisticated malware. Those clearly two different things. So, team to work 24/7 in a moment of crisis, unable to turn on customers. Yeah. A monocle, definitely. Customers' desktop as quickly as we can throughout the week. We also acknowledge that, okay. No real information. See, this is not helpful. Like, be clear about what happened. So maybe they don't know. I don't know. Compromise, we don't know. We don't know if they got an email and got in and the attackers, or whether the attackers were in and had a password and rooted around in all the systems. We don't know how automated the attack was, anything like that, which is unfortunate. And he comes back and it's just like, someone cipher copied your text like, World War II fashion, that would be not, I'm like trying to think about like from a puzzle challenge, that would just be so infuriatingly frustrating to like give people the, like a printed copy of the ciphertext, so like, would they even bother to go through the trouble of trying to turn it into something that they could decode without having to manually, like, do it by pen? Okay, so exfiltration is not applicable. Discovery, I'm going to say hours because we know that they discovered it relatively quickly. And then have been trying to recover. And the containment question is a really kind of an interesting one. It sounds like maybe days to contain it. Because it took them a while to do the look. So notification. I mean, that we kind of have from the first. I can't believe they have an article. Okay. We kind of have that from the first article. So let's see, cloud prior ransomware attack, 7/18. So they disclosed it on 7/18. They discovered it on 7/16. 2019, 7/18. So now we can do all the fun stuff. This is INQ. So how many employees do they have? Say, if we search for it, do we get a Wikipedia page or something? That's not what I was looking for. Let's look at LinkedIn. LinkedIn has 40 employees and estimates, what was it, 50 to 200. So employee count, probably 100 to 1,000. And then their NICS code. I mean, they provide a service, a professional service. So this is thinking 443142. I'm going to double check it because the computer ones can be kind of wonky. 44, what did they say? 3142. 44 31. Oh, don't tell me this is okay. So the problem is far Smart Biz is it doesn't have like the absolute newest NICS codes. And we really haven't done our upgrade to the new ones that came out in like 2017 or 2018 either, because they don't add a whole lot. And it's just we'll have to update our entire archive as well with mappings. So, but 44 does mean that there are some that don't apply. 443142 electronic stores. I think that is a different in sync. So they provide a cloud service. So they're a service provider. Administrative and support and waste management and remediation services. So is there like what we need is like accounting. Yeah, there we go. I'm gonna mark them as other accounting services. Well, I'm gonna mark them as the top level one, rather than getting too detailed. And you don't have to put in the whole Nix code. You can put the highest level that makes sense or that you know about, and that's fine from a coding perspective. Really, for the most of what we do, we just use the first two, and right, because in most of the time you're just looking at these high levels, utilities or finance, things like that. Locations affected, we'll say 1. They are a, come on, assuming United States company. They have information about where they're based out of. We've got U.S. phone numbers, so that's it kind of implies that they're United States. So let's go look at the about. There's not a lot about them, fortunately. Not encouraging. Started 20 years ago. Okay. Anything else useful? I wish companies would put like 253. That's what area code is that? Oh, geez. Tacoma. Seattle company. Okay. So region. Same as the others. State, they are in Washington. By the way, I try to like pull stuff from its main source just for reference, so that hopefully other people who watch these in the future can have an idea of how to do it. And there really were secondary victims here, but we don't know how many, because really it wasn't in syncs. I mean, in syncs data was encrypted, but it was also their customers' data, right? Because they said files on people's desktops were encrypted. And so we're learning, they don't really talk about how many customers were affected. We are currently yeah, so there are secondary customers. So this isn't required for the amount, but so we don't know the victims' IDs. I forgot to put a summary. So anything else we can record about the victim? Not really. Action. So more than likely there was an action to get the malware onto the system, right? Malware doesn't just show up randomly, and they don't talk about it. They explicitly don't talk about it in anything. And so there's going to be, I'm going to mark action unknown. And so we'll add that. And then malware, ransomware, and gracefully they actually told us the type here, didn't they? I think for the purposes of specifically so they could explain that it was advanced malware, not just normal malware. CVEs, we don't know anything about vulnerabilities. This really was none of those. And we really don't know the vector, right? Because we don't know if it was directly installed, which is most common. But they could have gotten it, a dozen other ways that they just don't talk about. So, fortunately, that's kind of all we know about the action. The actor is clearly external. If you're writing advanced malware, you are organized and have a financial motive. We don't know the country, don't know the region. The asset. Do we really know the assets here? Because it was kind of their, I guess we could say their application server, right? I don't know, is there... Because it says files. I don't know, but would it really... It probably didn't encrypt anything on the web application. It encrypted something in the backend storage. And it wasn't a database because it was encrypting files. So what can we say? What we actually know? I mean, it's got to be a file server of some type. So say file server. Cloud. I mean, we really don't know. Because we don't know whether they were using a cloud service for their infrastructure. Fortunately, we don't know the operating systems either. I'm going to leave that unknown. Total assets. I don't think we even know the number of assets involved, unfortunately. That's a problem with something like this. We want to record it because it will help us in our understanding of ransomware and such. But it doesn't really tell us much about the actions the attackers take. Data breached, not that we know of. Well, if there's no confidentiality breach that we're aware of, we can't really say. What we know is there was, let's see, not really integrity, availability, obfuscation. And this is what we use for ransomware. Duration, it started on the 16th. It was still going on as of whenever this was published, the 23rd. So they're at a week there. And it sounded like it was still going on. So made a bit of progress today. Next coming days, I'm going to mark this as weeks because I get the feeling that it took them the better part of 2 weeks to fix this. Well, but I mean, do we really know that? So if they're making progress and they're willing to talk about their ability to make progress around 7 days, they probably had it handled by the end of the 2 weeks, which, weeks is plural. So we don't really know a whole lot. So we'll say days. And then we don't have a unknown. We don't have an unknown attribute. Well, we do have an unknown attribute. Don't know how the ransomware was installed. Result to the unknown was I'll say we don't know how the hackers gained access. We know the result was that ransomware was installed, so we don't know what was compromised there. Was this targeted? We really don't know in this case. Some of the ransomware tends to be a bit targeted, right? Because they're looking for a specific... I mean, depends what level of targeted. Like they're looking for small organizations. On the other hand, they're not looking for any specific one. They're just looking for ones that fit a certain characteristic. More than likely, this was opportunistic, but without more information about how it came to be, I'm going to mark it unknown. Discovery method. We mark, nope. So I need to uncheck that. Let's see. So we want external, and then reported by, let's see, actor disclosure. So in ransomware, where the actor says, hey, you've been encrypted, like, you don't get credit for discovering that. That goes to the actor. Value chain. Development. They had to develop ransomware. Someone developed ransomware. Distribution. We really don't know anything about distribution. Or non-distribution services. So proxies, VPNs, marketplace, counter AD. Targeting. We don't know how the targeting happened. Distribution. Because we don't know how they got infected. We don't know distribution. Cash out. You're going to have to cash out for the cryptocurrency. And then money laundering. It really has it's kind of a question about whether there was cryptocurrency tumbling. Would be an interesting question. So we can probably look at how this malware works. And, you know, does it say anything about what happens to money that's deposited? This malware? Or is it? Maybe Cortex. Let's see. Let's see. Sorry. Ransomware. That's what we know. So Cortex demands Bitcoins in the lots of money to lots and lots of money range. Hardcode password, but it doesn't say. So I'd like an analysis of where the money went. Let's see. That's what we know. United States ransomware amounts from 2 to 3 Bitcoins to 600. It's really not helpful. Okay, so we don't really know about the money laundering. What I expect, right, is that we don't really have an unknown in here. Huh. Surprising, there should be an unknown. We kind of would expect that they would tumble the Bitcoin on the way out, but we'd like to see information about that. Impact. Let's see. This would be painful. We don't know that it's going to. It's going to be hard costs because they're have to pay a bunch to recover all this data, but we don't know that it's going to really affect the company long term. But it is painful because they're having to pay for the response, which is probably their biggest cost. But we don't know how much. So subsource, is this I don't think this was this is a random assignment. And so attacker difficulty, we don't really know a lot. Action, so there was an unknown action by the external actor, and with an unknown asset and an unknown attribute. And then we're going to follow that with a malware action by the external actor on a server, probably the file servers, and compromise of availability. This is ransomware. So infiltration method unknown. Okay, security maturity, we really don't know a lot about that. Make this validated and save it. Oh, and we forgot something. Actor, external country. Oh yeah. So actor, external, have to fill in the country, and we don't know the country in this case. So we'll find unknown. Did I put it at the top of the list? No. So unknown. There we go. With region, save, and we have our record. We'll do the same thing. Copy that to a spreadsheet. File new. Copy that to a file. Save it off. And return. And after I get off stream, I'm going to take these 4 and export them to a file. I'm going to upload them to the VCDB repository into the submitted directory under data JSON. And hopefully, I think the workflow is running, it's either running daily or weekly. I think it may be running daily, actually, though I want it to be running weekly. But when it runs, it will import them and validate them, and if they pass validation, it will move them into the validated and add them to the VCDB data frame that's there for downloaded. And so thank you, everyone, for watching. I'm going to try to do this. No problem. I'm going to try to do this like Tuesdays and Thursdays pretty regularly. It's a lot easier to code these when you're streaming because you get to talk about them. Doing the same type of breach over and over again gets kind of exhausting when you're not streaming. So I'm probably going to try to stream them and try to be pretty regular at about doing them on Tuesday and Thursday mornings. And so with that, thank you, everyone, and I will see you later.